Tonight, wild wind, a deluge of rain, and punishing hail. Southern Saskatchewan is cleaning up after a supercell summer storm. Also, as COVID cases surge in Saskatchewan, we check in with a virologist to learn more about vaccines and breakthrough cases. Plus, with the calendar flipped to September, kids pack up their bags and head back to school.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, September 1st, and CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. Last night's storm packed a punch that landed in southern Saskatchewan. Rain quickly turned to punishing hail as a thunderstorm rolled through Regina around 7:30 p.m. Alexander Kwan has more on what happened.
People in southern Saskatchewan spent today cleaning up after a wild storm swept through the region last night. The storm blew in with a dramatic entrance, reminding people why this province is called the land of living skies. The combination of rain, hail, lightning, and strong wind had a devastating result.
It kept rolling along. It's what we call a supercell, which is the kind of storm that can keep going for hours and hours because all the ingredients are there to keep it going. So thankfully, no funnels, no tornado touchdowns, but quite a bit of rain and quite a bit of hail.
Northwest Regina appears to be the hardest hit. At least 4 trees were down by lightning strikes. Others were brought down by wind gusts clocking in at 100 kilometers an hour. City crews were on scene to quickly take care of the felled trees this morning, but there's no doubt that vehicles and homes have some scars from the storm.
Yeah, there's been about 95 calls for a wide range of situations, including debris and branches and some localized flooding. The information continues to come in, and residents typically would contact their insurance company for severe property damage. Don't have any details right now, but the storm was significant in regards to wind and hail, so I do expect that there is property damage, particularly in the northwest part of Regina.
Many residents tell CBC they were surprised by how damaging the storm was. Others disappointed by a forced and unexpected end to their growing season. This Regina neighborhood is covered with shredded flowers, leaves, and bushes, torn apart by the hail. A dramatic signal that Saskatchewan's warm summer months are coming to an end. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
School is back in session across much of the province. So many kids were eager to get back to the classroom and see their friends. But for others, their parents decided it's just too risky. Pratush Dayal explains.
It was a busy and familiar rush this morning as parents dropped off their kids after summer off. But not everyone is feeling as optimistic about school. Catherine Stevenson is a mother of a pre-kindergarten daughter and a 7-year-old immunocompromised son. She says that she's worried about the increasing community transmission of COVID-19. She says her kids will not be heading back to class until they're able to be vaccinated.
Community transmission in the face of no other public health interventions going on is a problem.
Stevenson is also a part of a group that is trying to start a school for immunocompromised children in Saskatoon. It's an option for some parents, but others have no choice. Shauna Krasman and her husband are unable to work from home. They have to send their 10-year-old daughter to school.
I'm not super confident about her safety level. I am hoping that it's a little better just because we are so rural and the school is smaller.
University of Saskatchewan epidemiologist Nazim Mohajran says that the big 4 school divisions in Regina and Saskatoon are well prepared. But other school divisions in rural and remote areas are still lagging behind with measures including masking.
The responsibility of keeping children, staff, everyone in schools safe from this Delta variant is downloaded to school divisions. And school divisions are in a very tough spot right now.
Nazim Mohajran also says that with the increasing cases of Delta variant in the province, the provincial government should recommend guidelines and requirements to school divisions in order to keep all the children safe. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health is launching a new COVID-19 self-testing pilot project for kids too young to be vaccinated. Students under 12 years old at 24 schools will be given rapid testing kits. The tests show results in 15 minutes and identify asymptomatic cases. They would also need to be confirmed with a second lab-based test. The province says it will determine participating schools by consulting with divisions and health officials. More schools will eventually be added over time. Back to school also means more kids in school zones. SGI says collisions in school zones are relatively rare because strict speed limits are enforced. Both Regina and Saskatoon school zones are 30 kilometers an hour. Last year, more than 23,000 convictions were handed down in Saskatchewan for speeding in a school zone. But school administrators, police officers, and SGI agree the priority is keeping kids safe.
Keeping those kids safe, it's a pass-fail situation. When you're passing through a school zone, don't fail to slow down. We also liken it to an open book test because there's no secrets here. It's not a pop quiz. It's on a bright reflective sign as you enter the school zone, what is expected of you and what you need to do.
Fines do get steeper the faster people drive in school zones. Anyone driving 45 kilometers an hour would be fined almost $300, and anyone going more than 80 over that speed limit would be facing more than an $800 fine. Turning to our COVID-19 numbers tonight, there are 321 more cases in the province and 4 more people have died. The Saskatoon zone continues to be the hotspot with 95 of those new cases. That city now with 735 active cases. By comparison, the Regina area has 122. 134 people are in hospital, 30 of those under intensive care. The provincial active case count now up over 2,300. That is the highest it's been since the start of May. As for vaccinations, about 1,100 more shots were administered yesterday. Nearly 696,000 people in the province are now fully vaccinated. 781,000 people have their first dose. Next week, the government will start administering booster shots to a specific group of eligible people, mostly residents of long-term care homes who received some of the first vaccine and those who are severely immunocompromised. That said, there are still a lot of questions about vaccines, and the best thing we can do is check in with an expert. Alison Kelvin is a virologist at the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, or VIDO, in Saskatoon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So you're a member of the World Health Organization's Committee on the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine design. As we get more and more data about how the vaccines are working in the population, what's the biggest standout?
That's right. We've been looking at the vaccines since their development. And one of the biggest standouts to me is that there was such a high effectiveness for the mRNA vaccines in their initial clinical trials and throughout the first couple of months of usage of the vaccine. Typically, when we design vaccines for a respiratory virus, we're aiming for 50, 60, 70%. So this was a lot more than what we were typically used to for this type of virus.
When it comes to breakthrough cases, people who are fully vaccinated but do end up in hospital, why does that happen?
Yeah, so I think, related to what we were talking about, having such high effectiveness, we're used to having something a bit lower for breakthrough infections, but these breakthrough infections are actually of more mild disease. So the vaccine is more protecting against disease than infection. As we're getting more and more people vaccinated, I do expect this effectiveness to decrease, not in how severe the disease is in someone who is vaccinated and infected. I still expect that to stay around 90, 95%, keeping people out of hospitals. But I do expect the effectiveness, so people actually getting infected, to decrease. And this is because you actually have a different immune system in your upper respiratory tract, in your nose, than you do in your lungs. So we know that when you get a needle in your arm, that induces protection that is greater in your lungs. So you're not going to have such severe disease if you get infected because your lungs aren't going to be destroyed. Whereas in your upper respiratory tract, it's harder to protect from infection up here through a needle that you get in your arm. So I do expect to have some infection here, but not as much here. And that's really why we're having what we're seeing with these breakthrough infections. Less severe disease because the virus isn't infecting in the lower respiratory tract.
Lots of conversations around booster shots as it's been happening in places like the United States for a while. When should people start considering getting a booster shot?
Yeah, I think that really depends on your unique medical status. We know that people who are immunocompromised, possibly people who are older, might not have as beneficial response to the two traditional doses of the COVID-19 vaccines. And what we're seeing is that there is data supporting a third dose of COVID-19 vaccination in people who are immunocompromised, and this might boost their overall protection. For the general public, I think we don't have enough data right now to determine if a third booster shot at this time is really going to add to protection.
How is getting a booster shot different from, say, getting an annual flu shot?
Yeah, so these are two totally different viruses. Right now we're in a pandemic, whereas the typical influenza virus is more seasonal. So we have to get a seasonal shot to protect us through the winter. Right now we're having infections basically all throughout our year. So we want to look at what our immune response is doing, how long our immune response lasts after vaccination to really determine when our next shot should be given.
And all that said, we are entering this fourth wave. How does the Delta variant play into all of this when it comes to vaccines?
Yeah, so we know that there are slight differences between the virus that the vaccine was modeled after and the Delta variant. But compared to other variants, such as the Beta variant that came out of South Africa, there's actually greater protection from the vaccine against the Delta variant than the Beta variant. So even though there's slight differences in effectiveness for the Delta variant, I still expect the original vaccine to be protective against Delta and severe disease caused by infection of the Delta variant.
I always learn so much when we talk. Thanks so much for this, Allison.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Allison Kelvin is a virologist at Vito in Saskatoon. Last night, we shared a story about a murder-suicide in Meadow Lake on Monday. 34-year-old Charlene Graham was shot and killed by her estranged husband before he turned the gun on himself. Graham's older sister tried to save her life, but then had to run to save her own. Tonight, Bonnie Allen brings you the story of her harrowing escape and a warning. Many of the details are disturbing.
Charlene Graham's sister knew she was in danger. The 34-year-old teacher had just left her abusive husband, Delane Graham, and he was threatening her.
She wanted out.
Della Duquette says the family couldn't locate Charlene Monday afternoon. A day earlier, Charlene had told her this.
If I don't ever answer my phone, it's not because I don't want to. Please come find me because he has me.
The couple had split a month ago. Charlene's mother called RCMP for help just after 2 p.m. Monday, begging police to go to the campground where Charlene's estranged husband, Delane, was living in a trailer.
They just told my mom, oh, well, we have to go check the house and the school. And then when she hung up with them, I said, Mom, you go be with the kids, and I'm going to go find Char.
Duquette went to the campground herself, saw Delane stabbing Charlene, and tackled him.
And when I had him on the ground, I thought, okay, he's not going to do nothing else to her. Then he stabbed me in my hand, and it made me let go a little bit, and he got away. And then I went back to her, and I said, Sister, are you okay, sister?
She'll never forget Charlene's dying words.
Go, sis. It's okay, I'm gonna die. And then he came with the gun. She knew he had it. And he shot her right in front of me. And he took her life right in front of me.
At that moment, Duquette knew she could die too.
Something snapped in my head, and I knew she wasn't here anymore. Because I didn't hear her cry anymore. And I knew she wasn't here. And I heard her words telling me to go, so I ran, hoping he wouldn't shoot me in the back.
As she ran, she heard another gunshot. Delane Graham died by suicide inside the trailer. Duquette is frustrated that others didn't step in to help or call police earlier.
I was yelling for help, and there are so many campers around, and I'm like, why isn't anyone coming to help?
Duquette is devastated she wasn't able to save her sister. She wants others to understand how quickly domestic violence can turn deadly. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake.
Well, it is September 1st, and that means property owners can once again trim their elm trees. That is, if Mother Nature didn't do that for you already in the storm last night. The annual pruning ban comes to a close as of today. You can trim to your heart's content until April 1st. The seasonal ban is in place each year to reduce the risk of spreading Dutch elm disease, a fungus that kills elm trees. Stay with us. Ethan will be back with your forecast after the break. The 3-0 Saskatchewan Roughriders are back from their bye week and have started prepping for the sold-out Labor Day Classic against the Bombers. There's been a lot of talk this week about vaccinations. Fans must be fully vaccinated to attend games effective September 17th, but players do not. It could end up costing those who are not vaccinated if they're not able to travel with the team on charter flights. The Riders head coach says they've been at around 85% vaccinated for some time now, and he feels that may be as high as they get.
At this point, they've dug their heels in the sand, most of the guys that don't want to get it. I think, the logical arguments have all been made time and time again. And I think the guys that refuse to get the vaccine are going to refuse no matter what. So right now, the CFL is hitting them in the pocketbook, saying if they don't have a vaccine and they can't travel, they won't be able to play in the game. If they don't play in the game, they won't get paid. So.
Earlier this week, a player on the Edmonton Elks was kicked off the team for lying about his vaccination status. Dickinson says the Riders have not asked their players for proof of vaccination yet. If you own a home in Saskatoon and are planning energy-efficient renovations, you are in luck. The city's Home Energy Loan Program opened for applications today. It allows homeowners to apply for loans up to $60,000. The loan is paid through property taxes over a fixed term. This allows the debt to stay with the property, not the homeowner. The money can be put toward things like replacing insulation or windows or installing solar panels.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital, Regina's trusted GMC Buick Cadillac dealership.
Ethan Williams joining me now. I feel like you did not emotionally prepare me for that storm last night. That was intense.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have been emotionally prepared for that, Sam. That was definitely quite the storm we had, and we have the photos to prove it. Here's a couple of photos from Tara in North Regina. Look at that. It looks like Christmas up there with all that hail, making it look like the middle of winter. She also sent this one, and look at the thickness of that hail. That's after she shoveled her driveway, obviously. But, that weather can really turn nasty. And Danilo sending us these shots from the northwest end of the city with some pretty dangerous conditions up there as well. Here's a recap of what we saw, some of the highlights, if you will. In Regina, we had a wind gust of 93 kilometers an hour. Moose Jaw seeing about 55 millimeters of rain from that storm. Regina also reporting about 4.5 centimeter hailstones. That's about the size of a golf ball. Indian Head also getting pretty gusty, up to 90 kilometers an hour, or close to. And even La Ronge, 40 millimeters of rain. Just shows you how far-ranging those storms were yesterday. So why did this all happen? Well, we had a few things going on. We had a low-pressure system in the west central northwestern part of the province, and that always brings with it different air masses, different fronts. And we had a warm front which moved through yesterday, which brought that round of storms. Then we had a cold front which moved through and brought some storms today as well. We also had low freezing levels in the atmosphere, so the hailstones would freeze and there wouldn't be much space between the freezing levels and the ground, so the hailstones really couldn't melt as quickly. That's why we had such big hail. But the reason we had a tornado threat is because of something called wind shear, and that is an increase of wind changing directions the higher you go up in the atmosphere. So we had those strong southeast winds at the the surface, but southwest winds up in the atmosphere. We do have some storms right now on radar. This one is right over Paddock Wood. This is just north of Prince Albert, and this is a severe thunderstorm warning for the RM of Paddock Wood, including Candle Lake Provincial Park, and this one is producing nickel-sized hail and some very gusty winds as well. We also have another severe thunderstorm warning up further north. Can't show it to you on radar, actually, because there's no radar coverage for that area of the province, but it is up and around from about Lac La Ronge down to about the Big Sandy Lake area, and that one is producing some pretty large hail, ping-pong-sized hail. Here's a look at all the watches and warnings. Churchill region covered with watches right now. This is for storms throughout the evening, and there are those warnings you can see there. And we also do have a watch out for the Nipawin, Carrot River, and Tisdale area too. There's that big low-pressure center still sitting over the province, and it's going to bring some rain to the northern part of the province tonight. And it is eventually going to move out, though, tomorrow, it looks like, and bring some clear weather come Saturday. Let's quickly take a look at rainfall totals, and some of these could be based off of thunderstorms again, but it does look like that we'll get a fair amount of rain in the north. Here's a look at the extended forecast for Regina. I sure hope you like the wind, because it is going to be with us for the next little while. Looks to be warm on Sunday, though, for the Rider game. And in Saskatoon, same thing, a little gusty, but looks like, Sam, we are going to warm up and clear out. Isn't that going to be nice?
Not a bad long weekend forecast so far.
Yes, indeed.
But it could change.
It could.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Well, the crew of a ship off Greenland realized it had an unexpected visitor when a polar bear appeared on deck last week, making its way toward the food smells coming from the kitchen. The ship's skipper tried firing a warning shot. When that didn't work, a helicopter was called in, and amazingly, the bear still followed the ship the next day. Must have been something amazing in that kitchen. We'll be back after the break. The People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier is in Regina today on a campaign stop. He's pitching his party's platform and touching on messages familiar to Saskatchewan voters. Bernier met with candidates and volunteers earlier today and is holding a rally tonight. He says his party wants to revamp the equalization formula, scrap the carbon tax, and will support pipeline projects. Bernier is also advocating for removal of public health measures, including mask mandates and vaccine passports. He says he believes his party can increase its share of the vote compared to 2 years ago.
What we are looking at is to increase our percentage of the vote. We had 1.6% of the last election, first election. It took 20 years and 6 elections for the Green Party to have more than 1.6% of the vote. We did that in our first year. So that's our goal, because this party is there for the long term. We believe that Canadians need our voice and we need their support. So because the other options suck.
Bernier says his party will be running candidates in 95% of ridings, including all 14 here in Saskatchewan. I'm a bit afraid to ask after last night, but Ethan, what's going on with tonight's weather?
A lot calmer, don't you worry, Sam, at least in Regina, down to 11 at midnight. Gusty winds out of the west at about 27 kilometers an hour. Those winds will pick up a bit as we go into the morning, but it'll be clear, though, still 11 degrees as we get to 8 o'clock. And then a nice afternoon, temperature-wise at least. Winds are going to pick up out of the west at about 40 kilometers an hour. Saskatoon tonight down to 11 as well, with some southwesterly winds. By 8 o'clock, clouds start to build in. Look at those wind gusts out of the west at 51 kilometers an hour. Wind gusts close to 60 by the time we get to noon, and that cloud cover builds in. Hey, it's the first day of school for folks in Prince Albert tomorrow at 8 a.m., 11 degrees in the city. Southwest wind gusts also gusty there up to 40 kilometers an hour. It looks like some showers may build in as well, Sam, so might want to send a jacket with the kids too.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is all we have for you tonight. You can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel for more. Glenn, Reed, and Ethan will be back with more tonight at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.